California says no to anti-trans bills. 2 bills rejected in a contentious committee meeting Tuesday. And a Transposition sports special tonight. 3 trans athletes, 3 interviews, talking about their hopes, their dreams, and how they're working through the reality of being trans in America right now. Hello again, everybody. This is Transposition Sports. I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb. At the top of tonight, California State Assembly rejected 2 proposals by Republican lawmakers after hours of impassioned debate and commentary on Tuesday. One bill would have required the California Interscholastic Federation, the governing body for high school sports in the nation's largest state, to adopt rules that would ban transgender girls from participating on a girls' high school sports team. The other would have reversed the 2013 law that would have allowed students to participate in sex-segregated school programs, including sports teams, and use bathrooms and other facilities that align with their gender identity. It would have applied to all students K through 12 and college and university students. The impetus for these laws, Republican legislators now emboldened by the stance of California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom, who, on the debut of his podcast 3 weeks ago, spoke out against trans women in women's sports during his interview with professional transphobe Charlie Kirk.
Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness.
So
it's deeply unfair.
Would you speak out against this young man, A.B. Hernandez, who right now is going to win the state championship in the long jump? I can see you wrestling with it.
No, I'm not wrestling. I'm not wrestling with the fairness issue. I totally agree with you.
The trans athlete ban in California is the latest beachhead and an issue that's set to come to reckoning in 2 other states on the Pacific coast. Oregon legislators and its state high school governing body are considering regulatory proposals designed to limit trans participation later this month, as will the state of Washington. Their state's Interscholastic Athletic Association has 2 proposals up for a vote that call for either a blanket ban or the creation of an open category. The levels above high school have largely gone all in on blanket bans. The NAIA put up one last spring. The NCAA put theirs up last month, one day after President Trump's executive order. Tonight, we talked to 2 transgender athletes who are in the middle of it. The first is Cody Smith, a senior year sprint specialist at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York. Now, he's a member of the men's track team at Rensselaer. After spending 2 years on the women's team prior to transition, he has a lofty goal for his senior year, competing authentically. Robotics and running. How did those 2 worlds come together?
So actually, I would say the first time that I really noticed the similarities was in high school. My coach, David Holmes of Tamaqua High School, we used to really break it down to the basics of how sprinting worked, especially with short sprinting, because it's all about the form and how the air hits your body and making sure that you are as sleek and aerodynamic as possible.
You had mentioned earlier, started HRT last season. What led you to make that decision? In short, how did you get from A to B to T?
Of course. So I had a few health issues the summer before my junior year. And I was actually at RPI at the time for the Arch semester, which is the summer semester that typically athletes are given the option to exempt just so that we can focus on our competitions and be there for practices during the fall. But I was really seeking some opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise had if I would have exempted the Arch. And so instead, I was there in Troy and ended up facing some health issues. And ultimately, I went to the RPI Student Health Center and saw Dr. Ariella Zamchek, who actually just left this past week. She was amazing, really prioritized trans patients on campus. And I basically said to her that along with these other issues that I was facing, I wanted to be honest and say that I was really starting to feel like I would be more comfortable if I was presenting as a male and was perceived as a male and addressed as a male. And she was completely accepting and hearing that and basically said, let's see what we can do for you. That is the best ultimate option that considers both your health issues and who you identify as. And so I ended up at that point making the decision and signing the informed consent to start HRT. And with that, unfortunately, that was July 2023. My parents did not take it so well. I definitely tried to give them at least the little bit of time that I had, because it was very abrupt in terms of when I did start it compared to when we got to have that conversation, just because of the dire need medically for me to start taking some form of hormone. But they did ultimately say that if I chose to not proceed with HRT treatment, they would continue financial and emotional support, but otherwise they were letting me know that they were cutting me off from that at that point. And so that was definitely something very challenging to work through as a student athlete and really just as a human being at that time.
First, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear it.
Yeah.
Secondly, from a sporting standpoint, because you were a solid high school athlete, and then you went to RPI, kept the beat going, competing at the college level, which is not easy. How much did sport weigh into your decision to move forward? How did sport affect that decision?
I would definitely say that was one of the bigger outliers that almost made me consider different forms of hormone treatment, was just the fact that I was not certain how it was going to affect my performance. And I've always been the most competitive type of person and really trying to push myself, always do my absolute best. And so I did have a few moments in deciding whether to start HRT where I thought to myself, is this ultimately going to impact me being able to do my best? And for a little bit, that answer was yes. But I definitely think that the benefits that I've gotten just in terms of mental health and my own well-being have pushed me way farther than I could have had I continued to struggle with those thoughts and continue to try to compete and do school at the same time.
What was it like coming onto the team and coming onto the men's track team at RPI and say, hi, I'm your new teammate. I was over there last year.
So it was a little bit weird at first. The first time I formally addressed it, it was to my closer friends on the women's team. And I was really nervous for that, just because you never know how people in your life are going to take something like that until it actually happens. And of course, in the case of my parents, I really was expecting them to come through with support. And so for some of the athletes who I obviously have not known as long as I have known my parents, you really just never know. And so I came out to them via text, and the support that I got was immediate. I remember one of my friends mentioning that she had talked to some other teammates about it, because I just tried to put feelers out to see who would be receptive to still being around me at that point. And she basically let them know that our teammate is deciding to transition. His name is Cody now. That is what he'd like to be referred as. And I would like you to at least make the conscious effort to respect his pronouns and respect that name. And I understand that you're going to make some mistakes sometimes, but overall, he's definitely going to feel the love and support if you try to put it out as much as possible. My coach, Colin Torrey, has definitely been instrumental in that. From the time that I came out as trans to him, he set up a meeting with me right away up at our athletic campus, and he let me know that he would do anything possible to support me in my transition and continuing to be an athlete. I remember even kind of thinking to myself that I wasn't certain with the way that NCAA guidelines work if I was going to be able to be on that team still, just in terms of my marks. Obviously, my PRs weren't going to be up to the men's standard. And he reassured me on that, was like, don't worry about it. We just want you to be here and be a part of this team. And so he's definitely delivered on every single promise that he's made in terms of making it a welcoming place for me.
gut reaction to the NCAA's policy changes back on February 6th?
It was a really difficult time for me mentally, emotionally, just seeing a few of the trans women that I know, and even of course, the trans women that I don't know being impacted by this policy. And fortunately, at around that time, I got to know Sadie Schreiner of RIT, and just experiencing her story and seeing the dedication that she has to continuing to just even show her face in sports and keep setting those standards. It's been so nice to see that she's been able to push herself in that way. And I'm just so sorry to see that the media has slandered her and other trans women that I am so proud to have competed alongside.
Now, one thing, among other trans student athletes, have you heard from some others? Kind of, if you have, how do you help each other kind of pick each other up, especially right now with all the nastiness you've seen the last couple of years?
Oh, definitely. I would say right now I do have a text group chat with a few of the other trans athletes just in this relative area, upstate New York and Massachusetts, kind of that area. And we really do try to check in on each other. We're always asking different competitions that are happening and seeing, in terms of at this point with the sports ban in place, which of my friends are trying to compete and where, and keeping tabs on different universities and what their response to trans athletes in sport has been. And really just checking in on each other in terms of, one of my friends just got to compete for the first time in, I believe, almost a year, since she was with on and off injuries. And so just hearing good news like that and sharing PRs and personal achievements, we really try to create a space where we can debrief and basically say, hey, here's what's going on right now with our experience. How are you all feeling about this? And encouraging each other to keep pushing as hard as we can in the sport.
How are opponents across the Liberty League, for example, how are they taking your presence being there? How did they take Sadie's presence being there? What has the temperature been like around the league?
I will definitely say that Sadie has gotten a lot more national attention than I have, and it's terrible the amount that her name has been dragged through the mud. And up until now, I've taken more of a fly on the wall sort of standpoint and really just tried to listen and scope out the situation and see how people feel. But I will say that just based on my increasing online presence and the way that I've been more outspoken recently about being RPI's first trans athlete, I have noticed that there are certain people that, in a good way, I think have recognized me from some of my posts online and have sort of taken small steps just to let me know that they see me and support me being in sport, which is honestly really nice and better than I expected and better than what the administration would want you to think is happening. But definitely in Sadie's case, I think that it's been a lot more difficult, and just because people don't understand the full scientific and medical history behind HRT, particularly where trans women are affected, and want to make certain comparisons about competition being unfair when really it is perfectly fair.
Now, what do you think people get wrong about trans men playing sport? What's the biggest myths and misconceptions you're seeing about you getting out there?
I would definitely say one of the things that I had stick with me the most is a comment that I saw a few weeks ago on a comment that I made on one of Sadie's posts, responding to me, and it was a cis man saying that he doesn't work out at all and he is still in better athletic shape than I am. And I definitely think that that's a very strong misconception. Like I said before, that trans men are just ultimately confused women who aren't a threat in sport. Um, and I would definitely say that that is the root cause of the negative rhetoric that does surround trans men, just because it definitely, there are certain changes that take root almost as soon as you start HRT and you start perceiving yourself differently. And I even learned to perceive competition differently and just really becoming in touch with my own body and what I need and how far I can push myself. And I would definitely say that I am happy with the athletic progress that I am making, even if it does not seem like much to that particular cis man. And I don't need people to tell me what I should look like or what my time should be like at this point. I am proud of what I am doing and the fact that I am representing RPI as a trans male athlete. And basically, that is something that I feel cannot be taken away from me at this point. My experiences have shaped me into the student athlete that I am.
In Massachusetts at Brandeis University, freshman track athlete Elle Yung is competing as well. As a high schooler in New York City, she was a top prep school contender, prep league and independent school champion sprinter in boys track. She started her transition during her senior year and was planning to compete on the men's team at Brandeis this year, then switched to the women's team next year after she reached the NCAA's mandated 1-year threshold on feminizing HRT. That was supposed to be the plan for 2026, but the NCAA's ban on February 6th changed the plans entirely. And she talks about what the ban has meant for her and what comes next. School record holder, champ, prep league champ, all sorts of accolades. I mean, you just weren't some geek off the street, that is for certain. But the idea was you went ahead, you moved forward. The plan originally was, hey, you were going to get yourself, you were going to compete, get your feet wet, be on the men's team, meet the NCAA requirement, and then next year you get to compete authentically.
Yeah, that was the plan.
February 6th screwed that up. Gut reaction to the ban.
Oh, my gut reaction, despair, literal hopelessness. You can talk to any of my friends that day, and they'll probably say that was the most hopeless I've ever been. Just period. And then after about taking that day of just like trying to grapple with it, I felt actually a newfound sense of urgency and like fire. It actually ignited such a fire of fight for me. And probably in the first time ever, I felt like I needed to use my voice in public. And I felt like my voice had such a power because, as President Charles Baker has said, there are less than 10 trans athletes in the NCAA, and I'm pretty sure I'm a part of that. And yeah, I just felt such a need to use my voice in order to fight for my rights and fight for my brothers and sisters who are being denied their right to compete authentically.
Why is that important to you?
Sports have been such a important part of my life. I've been running for as long as I can remember. My dad, when I was probably around 5, would enter me into these little youth races from NYR, New York Roadrunners. And then I went from that to Little League Baseball, from that to running track in high school. And so not only the physical effects, the physical well-being you get from sports, the mental well-being of being able to just be yourself. Sports and athletics is such a healthy way to appreciate your body, and it's a way to just love yourself. And if trans people are being discriminated against just blatantly for something they can't control, their gender identity and how they present themselves, then you remove them from being able to have that positive connection with their body. And they just have to, and you force them into such a terrible box of what leads to depression for a lot of people, and unfortunately for some, getting to suicide. That's what we see with a lot of studies, and we have seen with a lot of these anti-trans bills and executive orders.
Team at Brandeis right now.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to make that decision that, you know what, I'm going to still ride this out? And how do you answer to those who say, you can compete with the dudes. No big deal. You're doing it now. What's the difference?
Yeah. As I said before, track and just athletics is just a huge part of me as a person, and it maintains my mental health so much. And so sidelining myself for a year, in my head wasn't an option. And to the people who are like, yeah, you're actually not banned, you can still compete with the men, I say, but I'm not a man, and my body is becoming very quickly not similar to other cis men and people who compete in the men's category. And I'm just very confused about that point, because I feel like a lot of people are either seeing trans women as men, and then becoming afraid of that, which is honestly, in my head, a little bit of a projection of how cis men treat women in the society. It's just blatantly misogynist. And then two, it just undercuts all the guidelines that trans athletes have to go through in order to compete on the other side. And so what I'm doing now is for my own mental health, and for to follow the guidelines so that I will be able to compete authentically in the future.
Do you believe there will be a future for you to compete in?
There will always. I believe that maybe at this point we don't really know. Right now, it feels to me that it's just a slippery slope of things, guidelines changing for the worse and new rules being implemented for the worse, and nothing's catching. We have seen very little legal challenges to this in terms of the NCAA. I'm pretty sure there's 2 high schoolers suing the Trump administration as a part of an already ongoing lawsuit, and all the power to them.
You're talking about the ones in New Hampshire.
I think that's where it is. Yes. All the power to them. I wish them the best of luck with that lawsuit, and I think that is an amazing first step. However, right now, I feel like there is very little hope. Within the next 10 years, maybe, I think that there will be avenues for us to compete. And hopefully with the midterm elections, something can finally catch and we can have a solid foundation to fight back on. But right now, it's so shaky. We see UPenn having their funding threatened, the Trump administration threatening to pull UPenn's funding because of Leah Thomas, athlete who followed the guidelines, and hasn't. I graduated UPenn, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 years ago, and the Trump administration is threatening them for what? Following the rules? For Leah Thomas being an amazing athlete in her own right?
Away from the track, what's the tenor been like on campus? what is it like being a college student who is a trans woman in the age of Trump right now?
I'm gonna be honest. Even at Brandeis, it sucks a little bit right now. Brandeis is probably one of the best places I could be. Massachusetts, sanctuary state. And I have so many queer friends around here who support me. And touching off track a little bit, my team completely supported, my coach completely supported, my athletics department completely supported. They will fight behind me. The university refuses to make a public comment on anything. And I have gone to administrators and asked them, what is your stance on this? Like, what are you going to do about this? And the response I got was, look at what we do, not what we say. And even that has been felt very lackluster across all, not just Brandeis, across all universities. And I kind of understand, because we see schools having the threats of their funding pulled, and ICE raids with Tufts. Even Tufts is 10 miles away from us, and they're getting targeted. So schools are being just scared right now, and it's terrifying, because while they might be being brave with like maintaining their support networks for queer students, not speaking out is just, it's not being brave enough for what we need right now. We need people to speak up. We need institutions that have power and who are educating our young people to speak out. And even more than that, just broadly, people who have the privilege, who aren't affected by these issues, they need to speak out.
It's time for your dose of Kirby cuteness. I'm Kirby the Cat. And coming up on Transposition Sports, anti-trans hysteria in a rec league. Really? Really, Carly? It's clumps in the litter box, I'm telling you. Anyway, Carly sits down with a tennis player who's as fashionable as she is fierce on the court to talk about this nonsense that happened to her because she got kicked out of a tennis league for winning. That and more to come on Transposition Sports after these messages from the angry gay grandpa. You know what's coming. Get the Kleenex out. Softer.
This little light of mine.
Dad?
Before you say anything, I just want to apologize for what I said this morning. I've been doing a lot of thinking. If you want to change your name, if you want to wear a dress.
It's a skirt, Dad.
Skirt? I don't know the kind of support you need, but let's get you some for all this transgender stuff.
Wait. Are you serious? Dad, what is this?
Oh, this is me supporting you. This is me saying I love you. This is me not losing you.
I love you, Dad.
Love you. Holly.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
I wanted to make a video for myself. I know 90% of the people who come to my content just come to trash my existence in the comments.
He's a man! Such a man!
Another guy in women's sports broke the 200-meter record.
I want to take proper time to summarize my life as an athlete. The reason I am making this video is because for the past 2 years I've tried to educate. I've desperately tried to speak with leaders, with organizations, with politicians, with the NCAA, but my voice has never reached them. People that constantly spread hate about me, they don't want to hear what I have to say because their opinions were made before they heard my voice.
I first picked up a racket US Open 2022, all the hype around Serena retiring. One of my best friends, Lauren, played in high school and was like, let's just try it. I decided, okay, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna go out today and buy a racket. Outside my door, there was a racket that someone had put out on the street for free. And I was like, this is a sign. I need to go. And that night in September, I went and played and just like have not stopped since. Tennis gives me something where I can prove to myself my limits, and I always surprise myself with what I'm capable of doing, and so that excitement and that drive and connecting with people when I play really brings me to show up every day. I'm very aggressive when I play, and so I try to reel it in a bit, but I naturally lean towards being just super aggressive, but I also feel beautiful and graceful, and it's just like such a good combination. And since I've started my transition, I had that gap in my life where I really needed something that made me feel that way. You know, when I grew up, it was, you know, I was queer and just very non-athletic really, and I felt so uncomfortable playing sports, and the culture was so difficult to integrate myself with. You know, trans people are not generally welcome in sports, and queer people in general aren't welcome in sports all the time, and so it was just such a pleasant surprise to start working myself into the community and going from being so nervous about how people would receive me to being, you know, just like part of the family in the cities. So there's lots of great moments where I get to meet other queer players, and we get that moment of like getting to like see each other and respect each other, and so I think that's really beautiful. I think we're entering these spaces a lot more, and I think it's really important for other queer people to see queer people in these like athletic spaces. So I just hope it becomes you know, continues to become a more open and welcoming place. You know, what I'm doing now, I never thought I could do a year ago, and so I just want to keep smashing those goals, and if I can't go pro, what's the next what's the next best thing, and if I can't do that, what's the next best thing? So just pushing. Yeah.
Welcome back to Transposition Sports. I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb. And in a special spotlight interview tonight, a story out of New York City. Cammie Woodman, 25 years old, self-described as, quote, a queer kid who never played sports, took up tennis 3 years ago. She's been playing ever since. Leagues, tournaments, it doesn't matter. Have a court, have a can of balls and a racket, she'll take you on. And she signed up for a league a few weeks ago where she lives in Brooklyn, a league sponsored by the Tennis League Network, a national consortium designed to build fun times and healthy competition. Yet, she was told, here's your money back, get out of our league, after her first match that she won, because she's a transgender woman. We sat down with her and got the full story. Now, first, before we even get into the controversy and all the nonsense, you said 2 years, if I understood it right, 2 years ago, you were literally on the couch. And then I look at you on Instagram, and you look like the terror of the local tennis league. How did you get from there to here?
I began playing, it was September 2022, and I specifically remember that because it was I was so inspired by Serena's final matches at the US Open, just her beauty and how powerful and strong she was. And I had already begun my transition at that point, and I had never played a sport before. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I need that. And magically found a racket on the side of my apartment here in Brooklyn that someone had just left out, and I thought it was just a sign from the universe, and I just started playing, and I've been obsessed ever since. Started lessons really soon after beginning to play, and just completely immersing myself with the community and starting to train in other ways by boxing and taking spin classes and Pilates. So it's really diversified my training. And now I'm at a point where I'm playing 4 times a week, obviously trying to compete as much as I can, and just always seeking to improve my game.
What went down recently between yourself and this tennis league you were a part of? What happened?
Yeah, so it's an unfortunate situation. So I had joined this league on the recommendation of some of my friends here in Brooklyn. And so I had joined it. I got connected with a great group of girls that we had a group chat, and we were able to schedule our own matches in. I had coordinated a match with someone in the group chat I hadn't met before. We met and played at my home court, Lincoln Terrace here in Crown Heights. And we had our match. The truth of the matter is, the league was at a certain level, and I just felt like my opponent maybe just like wasn't there yet, just with her experience. There's clearly a level difference between us just based on what we were able to do on our side of the court. And I just said to myself, I have this huge mental block with matches, and I just said, stay in it, stick to your game and what you can control. Try to move her around since the footwork wasn't really there. And ultimately I beat her 6-2, 6-love. And I was super excited and felt super accomplished about that, because in previous tournaments that I've played, I've had some pretty tough losses where I've been on the receiving end of that kind of loss, where I've lost, winning only a couple of games maybe. And, so it was this huge moment for me. I was really excited, super cordial with my opponent. We shook hands at the net. I had offered to be there for her as a hitting partner, match practice, whatever she had wanted, since I knew she was new to the city and new to the community.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately I woke up the next day to find that she had emailed the CEO of the league network, and the CEO of the league network had forwarded me her email that was targeting my identity, with the message just saying, can we move you to an appropriate men's division?
Wait a minute. Now, was that what the league said or what this opponent said?
The league said. My opponent had said, it's not fair that this is a man playing with women. I'm not going to play under the pretense that he's a woman. So clearly my opponent felt some type of way, and, really had no consideration for me or my identity. And I just left a really distasteful email. And then the league took it upon themselves to share that email with me, with that message asking me to put me in a men's division.
And your response to the league was?
No. I said no, because I thought it was ridiculous. I'd heard that across the country other trans people had played in this league before. So going into it, I didn't even think it would ever really come up as a big issue. And my response was that I've been medically transitioning for 4 years. A lot of competitive sports ask that people are transitioning for 3 years medically before they're allowed to participate, just depending on the sport. But I just, in my mind, I felt that I was justified to play. I offered to provide like proof of my medical transition if that was necessary. I also offered the fact that I just like felt like my opponent's level like maybe was in the wrong division, since I just didn't feel like her skill set matched the division's level. Because I truly feel that if she, were to play some of the other girls in this league, she might have similar results. And I just, I felt really offended that my opponent said that. So I stood up for myself and defended everything that I felt like I was doing. And the response to it was really poor. The man had said, like, whatever this is, we want nothing a part of this, and we'll issue you a refund.
Yeah, I'm looking at the exact email right here. Whatever this is, we have zero interest in being involved. Everyone who is connected is getting refunded and immediately removed from the program. Would you say this was a skill issue?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I felt that my opponent, like, it's just like one of those things where, I don't know her personally very well at all. She had mentioned that she played in high school and was new to the city. To me, even if I were a cis woman, I like in no world does that level of experience equate to training 6 days a week and being on court 4 times a week and taking boxing and taking all these other types of fitness classes that I'm doing, watching pro tennis every day, learning from really great players. It was lopsided, but I really don't find that has anything to do with my gender identity. It's court time and the hours that I've put in that I believe made the difference in level.
Now, gut reaction when you got that email from the Tennis League Network.
It was
like the email that said, whatever this is, we don't want to be a part of it. We're giving you money back. Get out of our league. What was your gut reaction when you got that?
I was just like, this feels like we're in the 70s right now. Like I like couldn't believe it. It was just kind of like my worst nightmare, and I was so offended, and yeah, it just like I couldn't believe it, because at that point in the email thread, I had already known that it would have been illegal to kick me out. And I was just shocked that the owner wasn't willing to listen to any of that. And it's just textbook discrimination, So it's like you hear these stories all the time. And of course they happen today, but you hear of these stories happening in the past as well. And you just think like, oh my goodness, like what a terrible situation. And then it happens to you, like, and it's just unbelievable. I was really in shock.
A lot of people spoke out. What was it like to have the support that you got from friends, fellow competitors? What was that like for you to see that, no, a lot of people were like, no, Cammie should play?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, I never expected the attention that it got. I thought, like some of my closest friends would stand up for me and say something, but I had people all over the world, standing, like speaking out in support of me. There's, of course, several members of the league that stood up for me and spoke up against the owner of the league, who also got kicked out for standing up for me. And I thought, as cisgendered women, for them to stand up and say, like, we don't want to be a part of this if Cammie's not allowed to play too, I thought that was really unbelievable. And I thought, like, what a great show of sportsmanship on their part to stand up for me. And of course, with this whole attention, a lot of hate's come through, but it's almost nothing compared to all the love that I've received. It's just, I mean, the response has been incredible.
I'm reading over some of these emails. I'm getting a John McEnroe attack here.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious.
You can't be serious.
You can't be serious. You cannot be serious.
I'm looking at all this. The big
Yeah.
difference is that they didn't intend to have an agenda to cause problems. Now, I want your take on this. As someone who's relatively new to sports even, but has probably seen the ugliness that you've seen the last few years. How does that land with you to hear that, to read that you're being accused of having an agenda and causing problems?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the craziest part of the whole situation, because it's almost like it's and this happens all the time when oppressed people speak up for themselves. It's like we're the ones that have the problem. We're the ones with the agenda to disrupt and make problems. And I thought it was so hypocritical because, and if this man was actually okay with trans participants, what he could have said to my opponent was, hi, unfortunately, I'm sorry for how you feel, but, we do allow trans participants. If you'd like to, you don't need to consent to having a match with Cammie again, and you don't need to play against each other. Instead, I got involved in the whole situation by him forwarding me her transphobic email and him asking me something that was outright disrespectful to my identity. And I don't know, like that to me, if anything, is a transphobic agenda and an exclusionary agenda, because I never had to even know about this interaction at all. It could have been handled by him as the CEO of the league.
This other person is still in the league who had the complaint.
Yes.
But they just said, here's your money back, get out.
Yeah, it was me and other folks in the league that had stood up for me that were issued refunds and kicked out.
As far as this goes, what's the next step for you? Is this something you're going to pursue? And if so, how are you going to do it?
Yeah, we're still deciding the best action to take. I mean, the ultimate goal would be for him to not be allowed to operate out of Brooklyn anymore, or the city, I guess, in general, because his business practice is illegal, just like plain and simple. What he did was illegal, and he shouldn't be allowed to make money and profit off of people in the city if he's not going to follow the law, just plain and simple.
More about you, because there's something we got to get at, because one thing I noticed about you is that you bring the fits. You bring the fits.
Yeah.
You bring the no. Let's talk. No, we need to talk about this because this is important. You just bring the fits. Can we talk about this for a second? Can we
Carly,
talk about
the best part? It's the best part.
It's the best part, isn't it?
I've always
bring
said,
the fits.
You know what? I've lost so bad at some tournaments before, and I've said to the girls, obviously the girls that I know and I'm friends with, I'm like, you know what? But at least I won best dressed, and no one can take that away from me. Like, no matter how bad I lose, I'll never lose best dressed, and that's sometimes okay with me.
Hey, when you first hit me up on Instagram, the first thing I noticed was like, okay, because I'm looking to improve my tennis dress game this spring.
Yeah,
and actually play this spring. So the first thing I noticed is like, come on, can we talk? Cammie's bringing the goods right here.
Yeah. It's my favorite. It's the best part of the whole thing, and it's like when I feel my best, when I feel like I look my best. So it changes everything. It feels like it's my my super suit,
You know what? Exit question. It's September, and you get an opportunity to play at Flushing Meadows. Center court, arena court, arena court. the big stage. And you get an opportunity to hit with Serena Williams.
Yeah.
What's the outfit?
Oh my God, what would I even do?
What's the outfit?
Oh my goodness. I mean, next to her, I would look like nothing. I can't even imagine what I'd wear. I think we'd have to like custom make something to even like try
No,
to
you get something
to
custom
stand next
made.
to her.
You get something custom made to your to your exact specifications. You get a dream outfit. What would it be? What would it be?
Okay, this is so specific, but if you look up, Serena collaborated with the brand Off-White and Nike in 2018, and she wore a tutu in her dress.
I remember that.
And you know what I'm talking about. I want that.
Yes.
I want it in all white. I want it in classic all white.
Oh.
I want to be full ballerina on the court with her.
In fact, I'm looking at that right now.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
It is.
I want to just give full ballerina. And yeah, just that'd be such a dream.
Is it also kind of like that very performance aspect, but also that artistic aspect that kind of draws you to it?
Absolutely. I mean, I love like how with your idols like Serena and Venus, it's not like, oh, she was the best part of this team. It was like, no, she was Serena, period. It was just Serena. And I think like having that individuality and that, you know, that platform to be expressing myself and just, I'm the one in control of this situation and of this win and my power. Yeah, that's it. Like I feel just like a superstar when I'm when I'm out on court.
When you consider stories like a Cody Smith, an Elle Yung, a Cammie Woodman, the common denominator is not being trans. The common denominator is they just want to participate. They just want to compete. They just want to test themselves against others like themselves. They're competitors. They're athletes. No more, no less. Yet, some will still look at them and look down at them falsely. And that is the crux of the problem. Because people don't see them first and foremost as just people. People with a dream and people with a goal. And that is the toughest part of what we're seeing in sports right now. The idea that these three should be penalized for being who they are or demonized for being who they are. When that attitude changes, we can talk about so many other issues. Let's make sure that change comes quickly, shall we? For Transposition Sports, I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb.